Grand Risings. We are on the morning walk. As you can see, sunlight in the eyes, on the skin. This is the first bit of movement for the day. Always, if it's winter, if it's spring, raining, snowing, I always go for a morning walk. I will not go for one only if it's extreme thunderstorm, crazy high winds. Otherwise, I'm dressing for the weather, I'm bringing an umbrella, whatever it is. Legit, rain or shine, no matter how cringy that sounds, is true. But always morning walk. And why I go for a morning walk is because I'm starting off my day with movement. So many people, the average person, they'll wake up and immediately they turn to their side, grab their phone, check social media, their texts, start scrolling mindlessly. I wake up naturally, or I set an alarm if I've gone to bed later than usual, because then I don't want to be sleeping in, right? But right when I wake up, I go to the bathroom, do my shit, I go downstairs, hydrate, get some water in with some salt, some electrolytes, and then I'm outside. I'm not diddle-dallying, checking my phone, start watching YouTube, bullshit like that. I'm getting outside, I'm getting movement in, and I'm starting my day off right. As you can see, I'm getting sunlight in my eyes. This is gonna set me up not only for my next night, but my next morning, setting my circadian rhythm. I'm telling my body, okay, this is when we need to be waking up, and especially movement. I'm not lounging around the house, starting to move, get my day going. This is gonna get my body in that nice repeat cycle. And I'm going to be going for another walk, maybe an hour or so after this one. And I'm going for about 45 to an hour right now. And I'm going to be hitting about 5 to 7K steps around that ballpark towards my daily goal of 20K. So a good amount towards that. And I'm getting a lot of them earlier on in the day today, because it's supposed to be very hot. Right now it's 35 degrees Celsius, which I believe is 95 degrees Fahrenheit. And later today it's supposed to go up to 45 Celsius, which is about 113 Fahrenheit. Very hot day, especially because I'm in Canada. We are not used to that sort of heat. But nonetheless, I'm still out here getting my shit done. On my second walk now, I took a break in between the walks. I went home and did some client check-ins, and I strained my kefir as well. But as you can tell now, it's much brighter and the sun's beating down. Very hot out. Definitely warming up. And I'm sure my walks later will be very short, especially after my meals as my digestion walks. But I'm about to get another 45-hour walk in before I go to train at the gym. Okay, so when I get to the gym, I am always going on the treadmill, doing backwards walking for about 5 minutes or so. The only time that I miss it is if I'm really in a time crunch and I don't bother doing it. But I do this just for 5 minutes or so. It gets the blood flowing, gets the heart rate up, and just warms up the body and gets you ready to lift. And especially I find this helpful walking backwards on leg day, because it gets that blood flow in the knees and stuff. So if you deal with knee pain or anything, not that I really have knee problems, but it just helps the knees feel nice and loose and get you primed, especially if you're doing like deep squats, things like that. It's really nice. You could also do something like the stationary bike, elliptical, things like that, just so you're getting the heart rate up. Doesn't really matter, just light movement for about 5 minutes or so. So for this workout, I was doing chest, shoulders, and biceps. And before I even start the first exercise, I'm thinking about what joints am I using mostly for this lift. So for example, this lift here, based on those muscles, chest, shoulders, and triceps, it's gonna be a lot more shoulders. Whereas if you're doing legs, it'll be hips and knees. But if it's upper body, it's gonna be shoulders and elbows for the most part. So what I'm doing here is just some simple band dislocation. So I'm just going back and forth as you can see, and this really just helps get synovial fluid around your joints and lubricate them, and just gets everything into the joint to make it feel nice and smooth. Because if you just go into it without warming up at all, your joints are gonna feel achy and cracky and stuff like that. So this is really good, and it works through the full range of motion. So you won't unexpectedly be like, oh, I'm not warm there, because you're going through that full range of motion. And it also provides a bit of like a dynamic stretch, especially when I've got the band behind me. I can feel it stretching my pecs. If I do this the day after chest day, like when my chest is sore and tight, it definitely makes a big difference. And then I'll do more of a lat focus where I'm going more to one side. And then I do a bit of a bend to stretch the obliques and the QLs. And then right after I do some work with the band, and keep in mind I'm doing like 10 reps of all these things. But after I do the band work, I'm just doing some simple arm swings. Again, it's just getting the fluid into the joints, making them feel nice, loosey-goosey, and it's not anything crazy. So I'm doing some front and back arm swings, and then crossovers, and that's really it. Bit of dynamic lat stretch to help get the arms overhead more. And now getting into the first exercise, I'm doing Smith machine incline bench press. And I don't go crazy high on the incline, I also don't go super low. It's about in the middle. I'd say here is about 30 degrees or so. And there's actually some studies saying that this angle is going to be the best for chest development. And because it's an incline, you might think, oh, it's not really gonna hit my lower chest. This has been shown to hit your lower chest just as much. So that's why I do this angle, and you're also gonna get more of that upper chest, which people neglect. They don't want your pecs sagging and make you look like you have gyno or something. So 30-degree angle, and then as I'm setting up the bench, first off, I'm kind of just placing where I think would be good. And then what I do is I actually get on the bench, I unrack the bar and bring it down to a level towards my chest. And I want to have the bench too far forward where the bar is kind of like behind my head almost. And then what I do is, as the bar is down, I push the bench back. If the bench has a bit of give, it's not like super stuck to the floor. That's awesome, because then you can really put it in the perfect spot. Because especially with Smith machine, because the bar path is fixed and you can't really go forward or backward, you want it in a sweet spot, because otherwise you're gonna have some discomfort at the bottom, risk injury, and it's just not gonna feel good on your shoulders. So I kind of play around with that until I find a good spot. And then the next thing is gonna be the left and right to make sure it's centered. So I get off the bench and I unrack the bar, and there's kind of two like neural differences. Like it's smooth in the middle, and on the sides it has like a bit of a grip. So I use that as a reference, how much space is on each side of the bench. And then I'm kind of just like shimmying the bench and making sure it's lined up well. And then now that the bench is finally set up, I know it takes a second or two, then I actually start warming up. I just do the bar for maybe 10, 15 reps, getting the blood flowing, getting used to that bar path and the motion of the exercise. And then for my first warm up, I'm just doing a 25 on each side. So it's like 95 pounds. I don't know the exact resistance of the bar on the Smith machine, but I just, to keep things simple, say it's 45, so I can track my progress and know how much weight I'm doing. If I wanted, like I could count the bar as 0, it doesn't really matter. Then for my warm-ups, you want to pyramid up to your working weight. So my working weight, I think, was 207.5. And so I did 95 with the 25 each side. Then I did 135 for like 5 reps or so, 165 for 2 to 3 reps, 185 for 1. And then I was good to do my first working set. And before my last warm up and the first working set, that's when I like to take a bit of a longer rest in between. That way I'm like actually ready to do the working set. Like I've rested from the warm ups and stuff. Not that you're supposed to be taking the warm ups anywhere close to failure, but I just want to rest up a little bit. And that's when I'll take out my workout template book thingy that I made, and I'll write down all the exercises I'm doing for the workout, the sets, reps, and then also I'm gonna look back at my progress and performance last week. And then, okay, I did this much weight for this many reps, and then I'm going to try and hit the same weight or maybe 2.5 pounds more for this many reps, and kind of sticking within those rep ranges. That way I'm always progressing. And it's helpful too, because then week over week I can monitor, okay, maybe I slept like shit, so that's why I didn't lift as much weight this week, or is it time for a deload? Am I overtraining? It just helps you have a better idea of what's going on. I like to write what week of the program I'm on. So here I was week 3. I just write the date to know what it was, and then obviously what workout I'm doing. Okay, so on the first working set, before I even unrack the bar, I'm making sure my body's set up. My feet are planted. I have a bit of an arch in my back, not overly excessive, but this is gonna help put your shoulder blades in a better position on the bench. That way you're more stable and you have a good surface to actually press off of. And then with my wrist, because it's Smith machine, this one unracks forward. So I want to overdo my grip so it's a bit backwards. That way when I unrack, I actually have a good pressing grip. So I unrack and I'm letting the bar come down in a natural position. I'm not flaring my elbows in or out, just wherever they want to go, because that's how you're going to avoid injury. Let your body do what it wants there. And I'm not bouncing the bar on my chest, controlled eccentric, slight pause, you know, little touch, and then I just press up and then lock out the elbows. And I'm training hard. As you can see, the last rep, it was a grinder. Like if I went for another one, I might have got it halfway up, but I don't think I would have finished the lockout. So you want to train until, if you try another one, it probably wouldn't go up. Every so often, if you're training with a partner or whatever, you can really train harder because they're there to spot you and things like that. But for the most part, like just push yourself hard until you wouldn't be able to do another one. Because if you're always training to failure, like pure failure where you actually go for that additional rep and you don't get it, it just generates a lot of fatigue and then that accumulates over time. If you were going to go to failure, like if you want to mix in some failure training, you could do it. So let's say you have 3 sets of a specific exercise for like incline Smith machine, for example, take the last set to failure. That way you don't have another set of that same exercise after that. Because let's say you go to failure on the first set, when you go to do the second set, your reps are going to be cut down so much more because you failed the previous set. So you want to be able to stick with the same weight without having to constantly make these massive drops. Then for the next exercise, I just stuck with this Smith machine and brought up the angle. I set up the bench the same way, like to center it and stuff, but I was doing Smith machine shoulder press just because I'm already on the Smith machine and there's only one in my gym. So if I leave it, you know, someone else is gonna pick it up quick. So I just have these 2 exercises matched back to back. And I did one warm up with just the bar to make sure it's like all set up properly. But aside from that, like my shoulders are already pretty warm from the previous exercise. So I'm just putting on my working weight and I'm going at it. And another thing you can do as well, because like I'm resting 3 minutes between these compound exercises, like I actually use a timer on my phone, like I set 3 minutes, that way I'm on track. And 3 minutes is usually good for compounds, and then 1.5 to 2 minutes for isolation is good as well. But during that time, I mark down like my weight and reps I did on my workout tracker, and then I'll just kind of pace around the gym. You'd be surprised over the course of like an hour 15 workout, just pacing back and forth, like you could add a couple thousand steps just doing that alone. But if it's a day where it's more intense, like leg day or something like that, I might just sit down and actually rest. But same thing for the shoulder press here. I'm making sure my shoulder blades are back and down against the bench. That way, again, I have a stable surface to actually press off of when I go to do the exercise. Okay, then the next exercise I did was flat machine chest press. And something I really like to do on machines specifically like this, because the movement starts at the end range of motion, it's not at the top, it can be difficult to get into if you want to actually have a good range of motion, because you can change like where the bar starts and stuff. So I have it set at all the way at the bottom, that way I can get a good stretch on the pecs when I'm at the bottom range of motion. But to get actually into the machine, as you can see, I use a clip for a barbell. I lift up the weight and I push that underneath, because that extra couple inches, it allows me to get into the machine. And then once I press off, I have it so it's like half on the stack. So when I press up, it just like falls down. And then you can see like I'm able to get a huge stretch on the pecs. And this is really nice on the machine because it's nice and stable, fixed bar path, and you can just focus on pushing the weight. You don't have to worry about the weight going in different directions and things like that. It's good to get a mix of different exercises here and there, but that's one reason why I have this in my program right now. You can see the last rep was a real grinder. So I'm controlling all the way down, and then I'm setting the weight down nicely. I'm not throwing it around and just like dropping it on my chest, because that's how you get injured. Not to mention, that's when you're close to failure, so why wouldn't you milk out that eccentric and get that good stimulus? Then for the next exercise, I did machine lateral raises because I find dumbbells, I do them every so often. But with dumbbells, the issue is there's the most force at the top. Like the exercise is gonna be most difficult when your arms are straight out doing a dumbbell lateral raise. Whereas the machine, you still have a decent amount of tension at the bottom. So you're still getting a good amount of tension throughout the whole range of motion. Whereas dumbbells, it's a very big resistance curve. And instead of having my elbow bent and kind of like flying, I have them straightened out a bit and I'm mimicking as if I'm using dumbbells. So I have the pad against my upper forearm and I'm pressing through there. Especially at the bottom, I like to take a second to really let the weight push my arm into my side because that's gonna stretch your delt. And then just to save some time, I'm supersetting lateral raises because lateral raises are a side delt movement. I'm supersetting them with machine preacher curls for biceps. And these machines, it's perfect because they're literally right beside each other in the gym, which makes it super efficient. But as I'm setting up for the preacher curl, I'm getting a good grip with my elbows bent first because that's gonna mimic how it actually be throughout the set. So I'm getting that grip first and then I'm sitting down and I'm really locking essentially the back of my upper arm and my armpit to the top of the pad because you don't want your upper body like hunching over and going back and forth, not only because you're cheating, but it makes you more prone to injury. And what's key on this exercise, especially preacher curls, is that you lock out your elbow. Because if you're ego lifting, you go, let's say 80% the way down, and then the event that you go slightly lower and your biceps are not used to that range at all, there's a very high risk of injury. So full range of motion always, most importantly for the end range of motion to minimize injury. Not to mention, that's where your biceps are gonna be the most stretched. So why wouldn't you go all the way down and reap the rewards of that? And then for the last exercise, I just did cable fly. I usually do this on the wide stack, but the wide stack in my gym, one of the cables on the side broke. So until that's fixed, I'm just using the close stack. It still does a great job, more or less. The cables are really good because you can get that massive stretch on the way back, especially when you take a couple steps out forward. Then you can really let your arms go back and stretch the pecs, but not just for the stretch, you also get a really nice contraction, especially if you pause, you can really focus on squeezing and isolating the pecs. And one thing to note too, you'll notice here, my arms kind of straighten as they're out in front of me, and as they come back, I let my elbows bend slightly. Not an insane amount, but slightly. And what this does is it takes off some of that tension from the biceps and keeps it on the chest. And once you start to practice it, you'll definitely get the hang of it and it becomes second nature, but it really helps focusing on the stretch on the pecs at the end range. And at the end of the set, you'll see I really like to dig deep, especially right after I've finished the set essentially. I take another step forward and I kind of bend down a bit to really stretch the pecs and milk out any bit of stimulus I got left in there. And then just at the end of the workout, I did a bit of posing because it's nice to see the pump you've built up during the workout and then also what you're building underneath, putting your muscle to good use, and also who doesn't like looking insane in the mirror. One of my favorite poses is a vacuum, so I like practicing that one a lot.
I just finished up 2 hours of pickleball. Got a new racket here. Shout out homie Wayne, hooked me up. But I would play longer, but I've got a client call at 3 and it's 2:44, so I'm just driving home now to take that. But 2 hours of pickleball. It's kind of like an in-between of table tennis and regular tennis, I would say. The court's a bit smaller, and especially if you're playing doubles, it's not as intense as singles. But there's definitely moments where it's very fast paced and you're like almost running suicides back and forth to really get like the wide balls and back and forth, stuff like that. So it definitely burns calories, but it's not super intense to the point where you can't recover from it. And it's another really good option to be able to burn more calories without affecting something like leg day. Because if you're going to play, I know myself personally, when I go and play basketball for too long, then my legs are sore, maybe a little knee pain. So pickleball is really good because it's not insanely intense and you can recover very well from it. I just finished eating dinner and I'm on another digestion walk. And by this point, you're probably thinking like, wow, it's a lot of steps he's done. 2 hours of walking in the morning. He's played 2 hours of pickleball. He's gone to the gym. Like, I don't have time to be doing all that. This is just what I'm doing, okay? But it scales to your level. If you don't have all the time, let's say you're working like a 9 to 5 or something, which you can still definitely get some steps in, go to the gym, etc. My goal for the day is 20K steps. You don't have to do that. At least get 10K, right? You don't have to walk 2 hours in the morning. Maybe go for half an hour. Go for another half hour at lunch, half hour after dinner. Pace back and forth at the office or whatever you're doing during the day. Go out of your way to be active and more intentional about your health. You can't just go about your day expecting to run into an opportunity to move around. You can pray to God, oh, I hope I get in shape, blah, 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 but you don't do anything. At that point, you have just as much of the odds to win the lottery. Like, you have to be intentional about this stuff and actually put your mind to it and do it. You can't just think about it, you have to do it. Like I'm here, walking, you have to do it. Action. And another thing is, you don't have to be perfect. If you constantly think, oh, I can't start X, Y, or Z, I can't start going to the gym because I don't have a workout plan. Imperfect action is better than no action at all. And you will learn as you go. So don't let that hold you back from actually starting to incorporate movement throughout your day. You have to learn as you go. When you were a baby, you didn't just know how to walk automatically. No, you took small steps, you fell, you were crawling, standing around, and then you learn. And then eventually, as a kid, you're running around. That's the name of the game. That's how you learn. So I've just finished my steps for the day. And to recap all the movement I got in, 20K steps, about an hour and a half of weightlifting. I did chest, shoulders, and biceps. And the third thing was about 2 hours of pickleball. And those three things follow a framework that I like to use in my routine. The first thing is to move slow. So walking, stretching, mobility work. The second thing is to lift heavy, weightlifting. The third thing is to move fast. So things like sports, sprints are great. You want those short, intense bursts of expenditure and energy. If you follow this framework, you will get the physique you want if you actually take action and implement it. And if you want my help putting together a structured routine, crafting something that you can actually follow, click the link in the description and apply for one-on-one coaching with me. If you found this video valuable, drop a like, leave a comment, and if you're new, subscribe to the channel. But aside from that, I will see you soon.